Receiving incoming transmission.
Hey everybody, it's this guy here for the Bitchin' Report. Well, I'm glad you made it. You got past the user agreement. Either you understood sarcasm and you had a good chuckle, or I piqued your curiosity and you wanted to see what was behind the gate. Either way, I'm glad you're here. I will say that I'm kind of bummed with this video because it took me probably almost a week to get this together. I want to address something real quick. I had some pretty shitty comments left in my last video, and it was kind of pathetic. But I want to say, before I am anything, I'm a human being from this planet. If you are going to do things that harm another human being, we'll have something to say about it. If you're going to trash the planet, we're going to say something about it. Everybody deserves clean air and clean water. There's just no argument with that. The second thing is, I'm an American. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I want a system that works for the American population, not a small handful. You know, we just had a report that came out that the 26 richest people in the world own as much wealth as the bottom 3.5 billion people in the world. If you think that's okay, this channel is not for you. You know, they did the math. A couple of smart guys did the math and found out if you took the wealth of those 26 individuals and cut it in half, those same 26 individuals would be still richer than the bottom 3.5 billion people. How about that? Okay, so now let's get on with the video. So I don't know if you've really heard what's going on in Venezuela, but the United States has got its claws so embedded in this country trying to rip it apart, it's not even funny. Let me read you something. This is from the President of the United States.
Today, I'm officially recognizing the President of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Juan Guaido, as the interim President of Venezuela. In its role as the only legitimate branch of government duly elected by the Venezuelan people, the National Assembly invoked the country's constitution to declare Nicolas Maduro illegitimate and the office of the presidency therefore vacant. The people of Venezuela have courageously spoken out against Maduro and his regime and demanded freedom and the rule of law. I will continue to use the full weight of the United States' economic and diplomatic power to press for the restoration of Venezuelan democracy. We encourage other Western Hemisphere governments to recognize National Assembly President Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela, and we will work constructively with them in support of his efforts to restore constitutional legitimacy. We continue to hold the illegitimate Maduro regime directly responsible for any threats it may pose to the safety of the Venezuelan people. As interim president, Guaido noted yesterday, quote, "Violence is the usurper's weapon. We only have one clear action, to remain unified and firm for a democratic and free Venezuela."
How about that? What a joke. The United States is going to support a politician that didn't even run for election. This guy wasn't even on the ballot. In fact, they got such little support that they boycotted the election. Yet the United States has just granted them full support. We are looking like a banana republic. This is a joke, man. The CIA has meddled in this country so bad. We have economically depressed them so bad. And then we turn around and say, see, look, this is how we do it. We've seen this picture over and over and over again. We're told that these people are bad guys and that these systems are horrible. But we don't know that. What we know is that we've been lied to as a nation. Our political system does not have our best interest in mind. It's the oil industry. Who owns that? The Rockefellers. It's been decades. It's been 150 years that these guys have owned the oil industry. And Venezuela's got a lot of oil. Oil company, gas company here called Citgo. Used to be at 7-Elevens. I'm not sure where they're at now. But Hugo Chavez, before they assassinated him, had nationalized the oil industry there, took it out of the private hands of the oligarchs, the oil barons, and used some of the profits to lift his people out of poverty. He subsidized food, basically, in the United States. That'd be food stamps, or the EBT card, I guess it's called. Housing for poor people. You know, he did a lot of good with the money. Healthcare for most of the population. What's wrong with that? They have lifted their population out from the bottom of the barrel that they were thrown in by the United States corporation. So why do you think this is going on? Because the United States corporation can't let anything good happen for the people. If there's money, we want it. Our corporations want it. You know, they've turned socialism into a 4-letter word, so now it's like a dog whistle here in the United States. You hear the word socialism and people think some totalitarian government, Siberian gulags. But that's not it at all. It's not controlling industry like communism. Socialism is for the people. So the people will come before the corporations. Doesn't that make sense? Because you're the people. But don't get me wrong. We do have a very sort of socialist system here in the United States. They just don't want you thinking about it like that. So sorry to digress. It's not really what this video's about. I'm thinking about doing a more extensive video on this and really getting down into explaining it. I think it's really important for us to understand the difference between socialism, capitalism, communism, totalitarianism, authoritarianism, because what we think of those things in the United States are not what they actually are. They're meant to keep you scared of them, so everybody wants to step on everybody else to make a buck. So let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. So Maduro, he's not putting up with this. This guy is the president. He was elected the president. And he's not jerking around. He's got the military support behind him. In fact, he gave the U.S. diplomats 72 hours to get out. And you know what the response was? Yeah, that's nice, but we're not leaving. We don't recognize you as a government. We're going to go recognize this other clown that wasn't even on the ballot to be voted for. He's pissed. Maduro's pissed. We are openly jerking around in this nation's affairs. So who is this guy that the United States has thrown its support behind? Well, he's a spoiled rich kid who was educated partially in the United States at George Washington University. His family went through one of the most horrific floods in Venezuelan history and had their house wiped out, lost a bunch of family and some friends, and he didn't feel that the socialist programs of Hugo Chavez helped them enough. So he was all butthurt, pissed off about not getting the help he needed from his government. So he became anti-socialist, anti-establishment. So when he comes here to the United States, he goes to George Washington University. And I hope you realize, if you don't, this might be news, but the CIA is embedded in some of the United States universities, and they're looking for people like this guy to recruit in order to educate them on how to take over their government. And this guy's a perfect candidate for that. A rich kid who didn't get what he wanted, and now he's mad, and he's willing to be the tool for the United States CIA to overthrow his elected government. I'm going to keep saying that. This is very important to understand that. But when I was looking around for visuals, I found an awesome picture. Stick around, because towards the end of this, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. This goes deeper than the CIA and his schooling. Much deeper. You guys will be blown away at what I found out. Trust me. So then he goes back home and immediately starts a protest because a radio station that was supporting the American coup d'etat against Hugo Chavez, he shut that down. Actually, he didn't shut it down. He just didn't renew the license for broadcasting. And this guy was upset and was protesting against that, perfect American form. And ultimately, Hugo Chavez, the next day, was broadcasting from that equipment, letting everybody know that the United States was involved with this coup d'etat. So a few years go by, and he ended up getting a job for a representative in the National Council, basically the Venezuelan government, the elected government. And after a few years go by, ends up getting elected as the head of basically the Nancy Pelosi of Venezuelan government. This guy came out of nowhere. Nobody knew his name 3 weeks ago, a month ago, actually. But he gets elected to this position, not because people voted for him. No. It's because there was nobody running against him. How about that? Guy didn't even win the election. It was basically handed to him because there was nobody else on the ballot. So this guy really doesn't have the support that it's made out that the United States is actually trying to convince you of. This is just a straight coup d'etat, and they found a pawn, they found a tool that was educated in the United States to help foment anti-socialist programs. That's it. That's who this guy is. So on January 5th of this year, Guaido was elected the head of the Venezuelan National Assembly. Big job for a 35-year-old guy. Got a lot of U.S. backing, I would imagine. According to local media, that happened largely by accident, since literally no other candidate could compete with Guaido at the moment. Just 2 weeks after taking over the parliament, Guaido proclaimed himself the acting head of the Bolivarian Republic. The United States was quick to recognize Guaido as the country's acting president and demanded that Maduro, whose presidency was deemed illegitimate by Washington, should prevent any forceful acts against the country's opposition. So in other words, hey, don't fuck with this guy. Even though he's committing treason and trying to overthrow the elected government, don't do nothing to him. Experts shared Maduro's opinion, suggesting that Guaido was following a script written for him by the United States. How about that? Guaido is not known for anything apart from being the parliament speaker. He's done nothing. He's too young. He's a man who openly follows the scenario elaborated by Washington. It's absolutely clear that the United States promoted him in order to topple Maduro. You can't argue with that. It's obvious. The United States just reached out and supported this guy too quickly. Too quickly. He just jumps up and says, hey, I'm president, and we say, oh, really? Okay. We didn't do any homework. We don't know who the guy is or anything. Yeah. So that's who this cat is. So could you imagine, this would be the equivalent of Nancy Pelosi saying Donald Trump didn't really win the election and I'm going to make myself the president. Right? Did everybody's heads just fall off their neck? And what's really crazy is so far we've got about 19 countries that are supporting this opposition clown. 3 of those are the United States, Canada, and the UK. So we'll narrow that down to 16. 11 of those 16 people, of those 16 countries, are countries that the United States has overthrown the government in at one time or another. How about that? You want to see what the deep state looks like? You watch who supports this Guaido guy. That's the deep state. You could see who's not in the deep state. Those are the countries that that we are openly talking shit about and wanting to attack. Russia, China, Iran. I'm surprised Mexico hasn't thrown its hat into the ring. We'll see. I'm sure we'll put some pressure on them, get the old boot out. So after all the election meddling that we've listened to for the last 2 years, we're going to openly screw around with some other country's election as if it's okay. The balls of this country to run around and bully people. Are you fucking kidding me? This is disgusting. Let's listen to what this guy has to say on top of this whole mess and kind of break it down into its individual statements and kind of deprogram what this guy is actually saying. Because he's saying a lot more than the words he's using. But unless you're thinking like that, you're not really going to catch it. But I guarantee the political establishment in Venezuela caught every nuance of what this guy said. So let's check this out real quick.
Hola. I'm Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States. And on behalf of President Donald Trump and all the American people.
So real quick, I just love how these politicians like to throw out all of the American people's support as if they have a general consensus from the entire population that we support this, that this is okay. Because I guarantee the general population doesn't support this kind of meddling.
Let me express the unwavering support of the United States as you, the people of Venezuela, raise your voices in a call for freedom.
This is a neurolinguistic programming trick that our politicians use. The Venezuelan people are free. They used their voice and voted for Nicolas Maduro. Free and fair elections. But to say that is to trigger the idea that they aren't free and Maduro's a dictator, which is the narrative that they want you to believe.
Nicolas Maduro is a dictator with no legitimate claim to power.
Again, this is more neurolinguistic programming. Nicolas Maduro is not a dictator. He's been democratically elected twice.
He's never won the presidency in a free and fair election.
This is another lie. This is because the United States jerks around in other countries' elections. That's why it wasn't free and fair. They just didn't anticipate the overwhelming support for Nicolas Maduro. Just like in this country, the deep state thought their tool was going to get elected, but they underestimated the population wanting to change.
And he's maintained his grip of power by imprisoning anyone who dares to oppose him.
So this is another lie. He didn't imprison anybody. There was 3 other guys running. They're okay. The guy that did get picked up and questioned was not imprisoned. He's committing treason. He's a traitor. But what Pence was doing was neurolinguistic programming, more neurolinguistic programming, getting you to associate imprisonment with a dictator. It's very important that they do this. This is part of the propaganda.
The United States joins with all freedom-loving nations.
Freedom-loving nations, huh? Would that be like Saudi Arabia? What a joke. What a joke.
In recognizing the National Assembly as the last vestige of democracy in your country.
So again, this is more neurolinguistic programming being used to try to get you to believe that Nicolas Maduro is something that he's not. They have done this over and over again. You've seen it. Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, the bullshit in Afghanistan. You want to see through it? Pause the video right now and do yourself a favor. Go to DuckDuckGo and do a search of Tim Osman, Osman. You really need to know that story. So were you shocked to find that out? Let's see what else Mike has to say.
For it's the only body elected by you, the people.
Damn, dude, you're a frickin' champ. This is more neurolinguistic programming and another lie. The National Assembly was not the only body elected. The opposition people boycotted the election. They weren't even on the ballot to vote for. Let's keep going.
As such, the United States supports the courageous decision by Juan Guaido.
You know, that's really sad to say that the United States and its population supports a traitor. Somebody who's trying to usurp power from the elected government. What do you think would happen to somebody that did that here in the United States? Think about that.
The President of your National Assembly, to assert that body's constitutional powers, declare Maduro a usurper, and call for the establishment of a transitional government.
Well, unfortunately, Mike, we'll call it you're misinformed. You can go and read this document for yourself, or you could take my word because I've spent the last several days reading up on this event. There is nothing that allows this guy to do what he thinks he's going to do.
As you make your voices heard tomorrow.
And this is what he's talking about. As you make your voices heard tomorrow, because you're going to protest, you're going to riot. We support you. Could everybody remember the whole Black Lives Matter thing? All these guys getting shot and the protests going on? How about the 99% movement? How did that turn out? We didn't allow that in our country, yet we're going to say it's okay for them to do it and support them? That, my friends, is called blatant hypocrisy, and our government's full of it.
On behalf of the American people, we say to all the good people of Venezuela.
So that's more neurolinguistic programming. By saying the good people of Venezuela, what that's trying to do is trigger your brain to associate the protesters and the rioters as the good people, and Maduro and his supporters as the bad people. They want you getting behind these protesters as a form of political change. But you know as well as I do, if we were out there doing what they're doing in Venezuela, what these opposition people are doing in Venezuela, they'd roll the tanks out faster than you could turn around and run. You know that. I guarantee that's exactly what we would do. But we say it's okay to do it in other people's country. Incredible. Let's finish this up here.
Estamos con ustedes.
That's an embarrassing attempt by a white guy who doesn't speak Spanish but wants to associate himself with you, as he's supporting you and one of you. Another neurolinguistic programming trick.
We are with you. We stand with you. And we will stay with you until democracy is restored and you reclaim your birthright of libertad.
Unfortunately, that's more neurolinguistic programming. They exercised their liberty in a free and fair election and voted for the guy that you want out of power. Nice try with that, but we'll give you a total fail for it.
Muchas gracias. Y vayan con Dios.
Again, buddy, you are too white to speak like that. Do us a favor and don't embarrass us anymore and stop trying to talk like that, please. So I know I kind of drug that out a little bit, but I think it's important for everybody to understand exactly what our politicians are doing in our name. Do you think the Venezuelan people are digging America? We have screwed around in that country so bad, and they know that we are behind this. It is out in the open now. Would it surprise you that the first thing that this guy tried to do after he was quote-unquote sworn in as president, he wants to reprivatize the oil industry, the very first thing on the list to get done. That right there is letting the cat out of the bag. The oil industry wants this country taken back from the people. Turn those people poor again. This is bullshit. Us in the United States cannot support this kind of meddling because we sure in the hell wouldn't allow it in our country. What we're saying that it's okay for them to do is not okay for us to do. And that's the hypocrisy that comes with America. You know, I'm not sure what has happened, but this country has definitely gone off the rails here the last few months. Not only have we been asked by the Venezuelan government to get our diplomats out, and we just give them the big bird, but they've asked England for their money and their gold back, and England just told them no. We've got banks all around the world, banks in this country, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, who are refusing to give the money that is in Venezuelan accounts back to Venezuela. We are doing everything we can to fuck this country and turn around and blame it as if it's the government's fault. The only thing that Venezuela is at fault at is putting their country on top of our oil, right? It's the same thing that happened in Iraq. In fact, Donald Rumsfeld is quoted as saying, it's unfortunate that they put their country on top of American oil. I think we're in deep. I think we're in the deep end of the pool. No longer are these conspiracies kept below the surface. Remember the Iran-Contra affair? That was shh. But the same guy, Elliot Abrams, that was handling that affair, has had the dust knocked off and brought back into play. This guy is in charge of the transition, the Venezuelan transition. What are we doing? So this is just now coming out. Juan Guaido, a few days ago, was snatched up in the middle of the freeway by the Venezuelan military and taken in for questioning. You know, this guy's committing treason. He's usurping power from the government, and they want to know what the hell's going on. Well, during that interview, he said that he wasn't being pressured, that there was no outside influence going on. But he was released about 45 minutes later and was doing an interview with the reporter who asked if he was under any pressure. And he first said no, but later in that interview admitted that he was being pressured. And now other people that were in that room while he was being questioned by the military are now coming forward and saying that he told them that the U.S. is pressuring him to do this, to maintain this line, that he'll be supported, he'll be protected by the U.S. He's admitted that. I just ran off to go get a couple of more visuals to finish this video up with and came across the last puzzle piece, a gem. This right here will sew the whole thing up and show you exactly who's running the show. Check this picture out. This guy's a Freemason. He's got a blank Freemason apron on, ready to be adorned. That's incredible. I can't believe I came across this photo and it has not made mainstream news yet. Shows you how powerful these people are. Shows you why the rest of these people are pushing him and supporting him. He's one of their own. They wouldn't support a nobody. This situation is seriously looking like deep trouble. You know, the prophecies about the end times, I don't want to get biblical about it, but if I remember correctly, the Third World War in some prophecy is going to happen in an area unexpected. It would appear that the Axis and the Allies are being set up. We have the people that support the opposition, which are all the countries that have been taken over by the cabal, the deep state. You better support us or we'll come and overthrow your country again. And we have countries that are against meddling, against being involved in other countries' affairs. And what's really sad is those countries that are against meddling are the countries that are propagandized here in the United States as being horrible, bad countries. Their governments are are just so oppressive. Their systems are so corrosive. Human rights are so violated. I could go on with this. This has gotten far longer than I wanted it to be. I've got this 5G video that I've been working on for far too long that I've got to get out to you guys. I've got to get it finished. So let's cut it off right there. Everybody, keep your eyes open and pay attention. World War III is knocking on your door. For the Bitchin' Report, I'm this guy here, bringing you the information you need to be an informed human being. Stay safe, everybody.